Hi, my name is Aya. You're watching Aya Reads, and I'm here to talk to you about all the books I've read so far in December. So, December is going to be pretty busy with family stuff at the end of the month, obviously, as is going to be the case for a lot of people. I do anticipate that this half will have more books than the next half of December. Plus, half of these books I read for my Christmas romance vlog, which will be up, I believe, on Tuesday. So definitely look out for that if you want to know more of my in-depth thoughts. So I've read 11 books so far. Most of them are novellas, I do have to say. And yeah, let's get started. As always with my mid-month wrap-ups, I don't really talk about stats or how I'm doing with my reading goals. That is reserved for the end of the month. So definitely check back if you want to know more of those details. So I had one 2-star read, and it was "'Tis the Season for Revenge." Unfortunately, I had such high expectations for this book. It was actually my most recommended Christmas romance. Everybody and their mother seemed to love it last year. And I can honestly, even though it was a 2-star for me and definitely my least favorite book I read so far this month, I can see why other people loved it. Let me just actually tell you the premise first. So this is about a woman who has been with her boyfriend for 4 years, and in that time he has been very emotionally and mentally abusive to her. He constantly puts her down. She's basically become his personal secretary. And the only thing she's ever wanted was that he acknowledges her existence, especially at work, because he's this high-powered attorney, and she has been wanting to come to his Christmas parties and his Halloween parties for a long time. And now he finally wants to take her to the Halloween party, and when she shows up, he tells her, so she's wearing a bunny suit, a bunny outfit, and he tells her that she's an embarrassment. He breaks up with her. And on Halloween, when she's drunk, she decides that she wants to get revenge on him. And she also wants to start dating. And those two goals interconnect when she finds his boss, who he hates, on this dating app. So she decides that she's gonna sleep with his boss to get revenge, and then hopefully the boss will invite her to this Christmas party that she's been begging him to take her to. The one thing I really did love was all the revenge in this book. Like the things they did to get revenge was great. Like even before the big blow up of the Christmas party, even before that, the fact that they put glitter in his vents and now all his clothes are full of glitter, like those things, like I like that petty shit. I do. And then once she finally does get her revenge on the Christmas party, that is also very satisfying because her boyfriend or her ex-boyfriend is a dick. So the reasons why I ended up not really loving this is because even though this was the longest of the Christmas romances I've read so far, the insta-love was way too strong. Like he called her like a term of endearment, which basically means soulmate, since like the first day. Like how, like what do you even know about her at that point? I also couldn't really connect to this main character. I honestly didn't understand why he fell in love with her so quickly. Like aside from the term of endearment, it was obvious that he was falling and falling very hard for her, and I truly did not understand that. The reason why is probably because it was all from her point of view. Is that true? I don't think that's even true. It just, no, I don't think it was from her point of view. No, I think it was dual point of view. But I feel like from her point of view, it was obvious why eventually she fell in love with him. He was the exact opposite of her ex. It was clear her ex did a number on her, and her trauma and her past, that was very clear to me at least. Whereas his side, there had to have been a better explanation why he fell in love with her so quickly, other than that she was just his type, like blonde, tiny. That would explain why you would want to sleep with her or stuff like that, but not why she's all of a sudden your soulmate. Also, just like small little things, like the way he kept constantly saying a sentence and then ends with yeah, that annoyed me at one point. Also, the sex scenes, even though you guys know I love smutty scenes in my books. And like I think I read the first couple and they were fine, they were hot. It just, at one point I just started skimming them. I really didn't care. And this was very obvious a spin-off from another series she did, and I felt like the whole, like the holiday scenes were so focused on introducing us to those characters and trying to get me to care when I really didn't. And this is supposed to be a Christmas romance, and it really wasn't. 95% of this book was spent before Christmas. It started at Halloween, obviously, so we went through October, through November, through a big part of December, obviously, before we finally got to Christmas. And that was just like one scene at Christmas. So yeah, ultimately I think this was way too overhyped for me. Maybe this would have been a 3 if it wasn't so overhyped. I just felt like there was an added disappointment because I really, really thought that I was gonna love it, and ultimately I just didn't. And also, one other thing I just realized, I get that the author was trying to make it seem like he was the exact opposite of her ex. I just felt like the way she went about that made him pretty unrealistic. I cannot suspend my disbelief that she would find someone the exact opposite from her ex, and it was like at one point it seemed like he could like honestly read her mind, which I don't really like reading about perfect men. I just don't. I know, because nobody's perfect. I'm not perfect, and I wouldn't want to be with somebody who's perfect. Like, I would like people to have flaws because that just makes them real to me. So, yeah, maybe that also had something to do with it. Moving on to the 3-star reads. I had 2 3-star reads. The first one was Ho 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 by Rosie Adams. This was just a short, smutty Christmas novella. Although I do have to say, this isn't really, like, you could read this any time of year, honestly. The only thing Christmassy about it is that she named her year of sleeping with men like her reindeer plan or something. Basically, this is about a woman whose husband cheated on her, so they divorced, and now she wants a year to basically sleep with whoever she wants. And it's sold in alternate chapters. So the first one is Last Christmas, where she meets this bartender and she tells him all about her plan, and then they leave. And now a year later, she comes across this bartender again, and they finally have their wild night, which both of them have been wanting since last year. And we see flashbacks of her sleeping with all these men. Like I said, it was short, it was smutty. I did enjoy myself. I do have to say, I wish it was a little bit longer because I felt like both the chapters in the past, like I would have liked to see more of her sleeping with all these different men. I would have loved that. Or I would have loved more scenes with her and this bartender, because they also started talking about how this was more than just sex for them. And I didn't understand how they got to that point. Also, I would have liked more balance. Like, I felt like it was more focused on her sleeping with other men, which is fine. Like I said, I would have loved more of that. But then I would also love more scenes of them actually sleeping together, because at the end of the day, it was their romance. But yeah, like I said, it was fun, hot, and I am very much looking forward to reading more by Rosie Adams. And then the last 3-star read was Mother's Day In by Lee Ko. So this is a Mother's Day novella, but with Lee Ko's novellas, you really do not have to read them in the holiday that she's setting them in. Basically, this is a older woman, younger man story. This pool boy, or this, not pool boy, he is a lifeguard. He's been having a crush on her for years, and now he's finally making his move. So for Mother's Day, she decides to go to this hotel where she's gonna get pampered and she's just gonna have to enjoy her time. But this hotel is actually owned by his mother, so he comes there too, and he comes in different ways. No, but he goes, like, he surprises her and he confesses his feelings and they get together. It's good. I really loved Lee Ko's novellas. This one is not my favorite, that's why it got a 3, and I think I gave it 4 stars when I first read it. But when I was compiling my list of books, this one, I didn't really remember a whole lot about it. So that's why I changed my rating to a 3-star. Now for my 4 stars, most of the books I read this month were 4 stars because I have 7 4 stars. The first one is Pucking Around by Emily Rath. I do have to say, this is around a 700-page book. And I read about 500 pages in November. I just never finished it. So I finished it in December. This is a Why Choose hockey romance, basically 1 woman and 3 men, 2 professional hockey players and 1 equipment manager. She's in sports medicine, so she gets hired on this hockey team, and one of them, there's a novella about them. She met a couple months ago and they had this wild one-night stand together, and now she sees him again. And then one of them is her neighbor and he picks her up from the airport. And then the other one is this goalie that is more of a slow burn type. Basically, she gets together with all of them. And 2 of them, actually, the equipment manager and the guy that she met a couple months ago, they also have a love story. So basically, it is MMFM. So basically, 2 of the men also love each other. They have been friends forever, and they finally, feelings start to ensue. I really enjoyed it. Why Choose? I'm still new to that subgenre, and I'm still trying to figure out which white shoes I like and why. My theory right now is that I love paranormal white shoes over contemporaries because it's easier to suspend my disbelief when it's in a paranormal setting. A couple reasons why this was not 5 stars for me. First, it's just, I'm sorry, you cannot convince me. You cannot convince me that these three very, very attractive, very, very successful men would all be okay to share this one woman. I think if this was MMF, it would have been made more sense to me. Like if it was just Caleb and Jake and her. But the fact that Omari was added into this mix, I'm sorry, like that was, I know that's the point of white shoes. It's just I found it very hard in this particular setting to suspend my disbelief for that. Plus, one thing that really, really bothered me is, so you have Jake and Caleb, the two men that also end up in a relationship. Anytime they finally crossed into doing something, it was always in her point of view, which I hate that. Like, they obviously had a lot to overcome. Jake thought he was straight all this time. It would have been way more powerful if those scenes where they finally did stuff together and it escalated, if those scenes were in either of their point of views and not in hers. And I get that's the point of White Shoes. It's the woman that's the center. I get that. But I believe there were 3 scenes where they made significant progress in their sexual relationship with each other. I would have loved for at least 2 of those to be in their point of view, and instead all of them were in hers. So that really bothered me. But I do have to say, this was just like a smutty good time. Like the sex scenes in here are so hot. In fact, this is one of the spiciest books I read this year. If you love White Shoes, I think you'll love this. And yeah, I'm just, like I said, I'm still trying to figure out what I really love about White Shoes. I do have to say, Emily Rath is definitely going to be an author I'm going to keep my eye on. I know she has a historical romance White Shoes, and I know in this series there's going to be a FFM relationship, which I'm very excited about. So 4 stars, I did enjoy my time, but it's definitely not going to be a favorite of mine. The Heart Principle by Helen Huang. This is the 3rd and final book in her Kiss Quotient series, and it's the last book she's written. I believe this one came out in 2021, and I don't think that she has published a book since then. So this was the highly anticipated book about Quan. So Quan, we met, obviously, he's the cousin of the hero in the first book and the brother of the hero in the second book. I have always loved Quan. I've been very interested in his story. So this is a romance, but technically it's not really a romance. It's more women's fiction-y. Basically, we follow Anna Sun, who is a violinist, and she's recently become viral. And ever since then, she has been having issues really finishing a piece on the violin. And then Quan, he has recovered from cancer. She has a boyfriend, but the boyfriend wants to have an open relationship because he wants to marry her, but before he wants to do that, he wants to explore everything that he's been missing or he's gonna miss out on when he marries her. I don't know, it was a flaky reasoning on his part. So she knows that he thinks that means that she's gonna wait for him while he has all the fun in the world. So she decides, F that, I'm gonna do the same. So she goes on this dating app, and Quan has been so he used to be this playboy, he used to get chicks left and right, and ever since his surgery, he's been very insecure. He also wants to get back into the sack, basically. So they meet each other and try to have this one-night stand, but it's like full of disaster and full of it just doesn't work out. And instead they decide to take it slow, talk to each other, basically be boyfriend and girlfriend without the sex. And then ultimately they do. But then her father gets very, very sick, and she has to take care of him alongside her sister and her mother. And she also finds out that she has autism. So basically this book is told in 3 parts, and the first part is definitely very romance heavy, and then the second and third part are more focused on her, which is fine. That is what Helen Huang also, it was a very personal book. I think she says in her author's note too that yes, to date, this is the most me book I've written. The struggles that Anna has been through, Helen has been through as well. So in that case, it was a very poignant book. And I do definitely it was very sad. At the end of the day, it was a 4 star, I think, because the Kiss Quotient was really my favorite in this series. The other 2, I just didn't love as much. Plus, I'm just like a romance girly. I love romance, especially Quan's book. I just wanted more about him and his romance. And at the end of the day, it was just Anna's book. And that, like I said, that's fine. I'm not hating on it. But that's just not the type of books that I love to read, so that was why it was a 4 star for me. Christmas on the 13th Floor by Li Jiako. Once again, one of her Holly Knights books, actually the first one she's written, and this one was the most Christmas, like the most that revolved around the holiday, in my opinion. This is a about this woman who has this boss that she despises, and he constantly gives her orders. I mean, obviously, he's her boss. She's a personal assistant, so obviously he gives her orders, but he always does them in a kind of condescending way, and also gives her orders that she can like barely do for him. Like, they're almost impossible. And he's into BDSM, and he thinks that she's a brat but also loves praise, and she wants to please him. Like, even though this task was very hard for her to do, she loves that at the end of the day when he gives her praise. She, in the meantime, has been trying to find something else because this is not her passion. Her passion is writing about makeup and stuff like that. So once somebody from a magazine calls him up for a reference, he decides, all bets are off. I'm finally gonna get all my fantasies come to life. So he decides to enact his plan to see if she could be his sub. Basically, this is a BDSM book. He's obviously a very dominant guy, and she's submissive, but like I said, also a brat. So I really love this book. I thought it was so good. This is one of my favorites in the series. I love the Christmas party and the fact that they have sex in the elevator on the way up. That was so hot to me. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, I would highly recommend it. I would recommend all of these novellas by Lee Joko. When She Was Naughty by Tessa Dare, once again, a holiday romance. And this was very, very short. It was only 40 pages, but I thoroughly enjoyed my time. Basically, this is a spin on the Ugly Christmas Sweater. It's only 40 pages, so you fly through it. Basically, it's a historical romance set during Christmas. He's an earl, and her family's rich, but not part of the aristocracy. But his cousin married her brother, so that's why they have been interacting for the last couple of months. And she thinks he hates her because he's constantly looking down on her, he constantly corrects her, he constantly just looks at her in a way that she thinks equals hate. What she doesn't know is that he's secretly been pining for her all these months, and he's actually been planning on asking her to marry him. But like I said, she thinks that that he hates her, so she decides to play a prank on him and tell him that every man in her family wears these like ugly Christmas vests. So he wears one, and he's very embarrassed, and then all feelings come to life, and it was cute. I wish it was longer. I think if it was longer, this would have been 100% a 5-star. I love Tessa Dare, and I think I really love her historical romances, and I always really love reading historical romances during this time of year. Christmas in Chestnut Springs. So this is in a Christmas anthology. Let me actually tell you what that book is called. Once Upon a Holiday. And this is just like different authors have written Christmas stories. And the only reason I got this is because of Elsie Silver's book, because it was Christmas in Chestnut Springs. Obviously, I needed to read it. So I only read this story in this book. Basically, it's just 5 chapters in all the heroes' point of view. And it's basically in order of publication date. So you start with Red and Summer, and then you go to Kate and Will, and you end with Bo and Bailey. And it's basically a couple days around the holidays of their shenanigans, and they all actually take place like right after each other. So the end of Red's point of view goes into Kate's point of view, and then you go into Jasper's point of view. So I really loved it. Obviously, I love the Chestnut Springs series, so any extra content about them I'm always gonna love. But yeah, it was 4 stars. It was not 5 because this was not really necessary. Like, this is just like a fun time, which is fine. But with a 5-star, I really have to think about it afterwards. And I do have to say, after I finished it, I was like, I kind of forgot that I read it. So, I mean, that tells you enough. But I'm going to be rereading this, definitely. And it's going to be part of the rotation. When I reread the Chestnut Springs series, I'm going to reread Christmas in Chestnut Springs as well, because I love these characters. Next is Trick Shot by Kayla Gross. This is my favorite holiday romance I read so far. And this is novella, so it's about 200 pages. You follow Riley, and she misses her flight to Seattle, and when she's at the airport bar, she meets this like famous Seattle hockey player, and she comes home with him and ends up having sex with him and his best friend. But what she doesn't know is that he's actually not the famous hockey player. Is actually his twin brother, Leo. And Leo and Jace, so him and his best friend, Leo's pansexual, Jace is bisexual, and they have been having sex a long time, and they're best friends, but they love each other as more than that. But Leo has always never really wanted commitment until obviously he meets Riley and they end up having this MMF relationship, and she's everything that's been missing in their dynamic. I really love this. This was a very, very good, smutty good time. I'm very interested to read more by Kayla Gross. I know her other, like her cowboy romance that also came out in 2023. I didn't think that it was going to be that smutty, but reading this, I know it definitely will. The only reason why this was a 4 and not a 5 is because they professed their love after one night. And I can't believe that you could have this magical night together. I can't believe that. But either make this novella a little bit longer, like have it take place around more than just Christmas, or just let it be what it is, like three people had an amazing night together who are willing to see where else this relationship is gonna go. Like if it was either of those two things, I do think it would have been 5 stars, because I thought everything was great about this book. Like I loved their dynamics. I loved all 3 dynamics. Like MMFs are harder because you don't just set up one relationship, you set up 3 relationships. So, and I felt like she did that wonderfully. Like I could definitely understand why all of them were attracted to each other. And I really love that. It was hot. It was so steamy. And I really enjoyed my time. And I'm very interested to read more by Kayla Gross. And then my last 4-star read was Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez. This is the first book in her Part of Your World duology, I think. The second one was Yours Truly, and I read that one for the Goodreads Choice Awards video I did in November, and this was just an easy way to finish off this series. Basically, in this book, you follow Alexis and Daniel, and Alexis is this doctor from this very, very prominent doctor family. She recently broke up with her boyfriend, but everybody in her life just assumes they're going to get back together, even though he was very emotionally abusive to her. But like I said, everybody assumes they are gonna get together again, and including like her father especially is like in love with her ex. Her ex refuses to leave their house because they both bought it, and she's trying to kick him out, but that's not possible, so they both have to live there. And one day her car gets stuck in this town, a small town, and she gets saved by this guy who is the mayor of this tiny town, and they have this amazing night together, and then they decide that they're gonna keep seeing each other, but they live pretty far away. She only goes to him, he never visits her. I thought this was so cute. I love Daniel. Daniel was just like the perfect man. He was so sweet. I love this tiny town. I would have loved to see more about them. Like I would have loved more romances set in this specific town. I just thought like the way he loved Alexis just melted my heart. The tiny things he did for her, I just love. And I love their little bubble, and I loved that like more was going on. I think Abby Jimenez does that well. Like he, for example, has a cousin who's in this abusive relationship that he's trying to help her, but she can only help herself. His mom is this awful person that he also has to deal with, and obviously she has all these expectations set on her. She also has a brother who just got married to like this famous musician. Oh, also this is an age gap. She's 10 years older than him. The reason this was 4 and not 5 stars, I felt like this relationship felt very unequal, to be honest. I believe they're HGA, and I believe at the end of the day it is a very equal relationship, but for the majority of this book, everything they did was on her terms, and he just constantly had to acquiesce. And I felt like, and I get it, like I get why she could not leave and could not choose him, but I just felt like she hurt him one too many times. And like one scene, even when like in their 3rd act breakup, she kept hurting him, and it was just so sad. And I'm just gonna read you one sentence that sums it up for me. So this is in their 3rd act breakup. It's not gonna spoil it, but at one point she actually calls him. He ends the chapter with, "Then she was gone. I bawled into my pillow like a baby, and when I was done, I blocked her number so she could never do this to me again." Like that to me just describes their dynamic for the majority of this book. Like there are a couple scenes where I know that she was not embarrassed of him, but on surface level that just seemed like what it was. And I just felt like there were points in this book where I just felt like he doesn't deserve this. Like he doesn't. Like he's like such a sweet guy and such a good guy, and he does not deserve the way that she treated him, which once again, I'm not saying that she's a bad woman, because she's not. She's like, I really like her actually, and I understand why she was doing the things she was doing. And obviously she was also like very beholden to these people around her and this bubble that she was in. But I just felt like the consequence just stayed the same. He ended up hurt. That is why it was not a 5-star book, even though I did really love a lot of things in this book. I'm sensing a theme here with Abby Jimenez. I'm very much wondering because I really love her writing. I really love her character. So she has potential for me to have a 5-star book from her, but I just feel like a lot of other things just get in the way of that. Plus, I do feel like this just had way too many Fade to Black scenes for my liking. But yeah, like I said, you guys know how much I love smutty scenes. And then last but most certainly not least, my favorite book I read this month, my only 5-star I gave out so far, was Spy Family Volume 10. So this is the most recent volume that is out so far. I've been anticipating it ever since I got caught up on the series. And this is one of my favorite volumes actually, because you see this poor little baby. That is actually Lloyd as a child. So what I really loved about this volume was that we got to see a lot about Lloyd's background and why he became the spy. And we saw his mother, we saw his friends, and we saw how he climbed up the ranks. But we got a lot of scenes of him as a child, which I really love that. I always love in books when you get background information about a character, and especially in these long-running manga series, the volumes that have that are always going to be my favorite. We still don't know his actual name though. I'm wondering if we'll ever find that out. Really love this. And this volume actually gives us another in through Yor to get Lloyd's mission accomplished. So I really love that as well. So yes, those were all the books that I read so far in the month. Definitely let me know in the comments below if you've read any of these and what your thoughts were. Also, I would really love to know what your favorite book was that you read so far, and also what are you looking forward to most. I actually almost finished Manacled by Senlin Yu, which I'm honestly 100% sure is going to be my favorite book I'm going to be reading in December, but I'll tell you more about it in my end of month wrap up, and I'm going to be doing a whole vlog revolving around this book, so definitely keep your eye out on that. And like I said, I have family visiting, so a couple books that are still definitely on my TBR are Crescent City, so House of Earth and Blood. I need to finish that. I need to start and finish that reread. Plus King of Scars, definitely, and maybe even Rule of Wolves are going to be the 3 books I'm going to be focusing on for the rest of the month. And if I can read more than that, I obviously would love that. Also, I have a couple more Christmas romances that I want to get to, because I still have today and tomorrow to read as many of those as I can. So yeah, I really hope you enjoyed this video. Definitely let me know by leaving a like if you did, and thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.